Labs.
Welcome to the 20th episode of the HiFi Five. I'm Ron Resnick. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We are stuck at 950 subscribers for a whole week. We got to get a few more to 1,000, so please make that happen. Our regulars are Elliot Goldman of Bending Wave USA, Danny Kaey standing in for Tricycle tonight, of EMMLabs and Sonic Flare, and Jay Caceres of Jay's Audio Lab, managing Forward Operating Base Houston.
What's up? What's going on, everybody? Here we go.
If you're not subscribed, you're going to be deported. Okay, so hit that subscribe button.
The nice team is coming after you.
That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our 20th episode. We're going to be a little bit introspective tonight. And our first question is, for each of our regulars, how do you feel the show is going? What's been your experience? And what do you hope for us for the future? Danny.
How does comment my buddy V Spinner, how does Danny come up with these names? Simple, just fantasy and looking through history and whatnot. Tricycle was actually the code name, MI6 code MI5, sorry, MI5 code name for Dushko Popov, Elliot's great uncle, who was Ian Fleming's inspiration for James Bond 007. So anyway, that's how the name Tricycle comes up. That was his code name. What was the question, Ron?
How are you enjoying the show?
Ron Burgundy? It's first of all, congratulations. 20 episodes in, which means we're almost, yes, that's right.
We'll stand and applaud. We will stand and applaud.
Take your right hand, put it on your left shoulder, and tap yourself on the back. That's right. Congratulations to all of us for having survived 20 episodes. I always jokingly tell my friends, you should see the text thread that we have amongst the four of us. It's always good for laughs. Look, I enjoy each one of us's spirit in this. Elliot, you're one of a kind. Ron, you're one of a kind. Jay, you're certainly one of a kind. I think we all bring a very different perspective to things. Certainly we all have different experiences in this industry. And, look, part of me thinks I still don't quite know if I'm being perfectly honest, Frank. I still don't quite know sometimes what the purpose of this show is exactly. I'm Ron Burgundy. I sometimes question just how we go about the show, I guess. The questions sometimes seem repetitive. The arguments certainly seem repetitive. We all know that this industry has all sorts of problems. This industry, I mean, it's, if you want to call it industry, I think it's a hobby. I think if you look at the makeup of companies that make this industry up, I think most of them are hobbyists. Most of them are, mom and pop shops that have built a great product and, to one extent or another have been able to sell it and find a market for it. And, more power to them. I think
Danny, let's tell you, keep going.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it's just, I'm just trying to be honest and transparent in the sense that, it's, what are we trying to achieve? Right. I mean, it's like, are the four of us going to change the industry? No, we're not. Right. I mean, let's face it. It's not going to happen.
I think we're actually doing some changing, frankly.
Danny, I think you need to land the plane.
Yeah, I agree.
What are we changing? What are we changing?
we can talk about that after we go through everybody. Elliot,
all right.
Elliot, go ahead.
Anyway, forgive me real quick. So look, is this a great outlet? It's fun, right? What are we really doing? I sometimes question that. Anyway,
okay. I don't. Elliot, what do you? Go ahead.
Well, I first of all, I'm pleasantly surprised at the show, and obviously we're learning and we've changed as we've gone forth. But the impact of the show is far greater than many people want to pay attention to. I mean, I just came back from the Florida show, and when you listen, 2 major magazines bypassed the show, refused to show up. Now, what that was all about, I don't know, but a lot of it says from the internet and from things that are going on. I know that Jay and and I'm sure Ron has too, have heard from a lot of manufacturers, from distributors, from people on both sides saying it's good, it's bad. We are obviously disrupting something. Ron is also part of a forum, and they are very threatened by this show for whatever reason, including just closing a thread about the show in the last week. And I think there's a lot of people that we make uncomfortable by talking about subjects that sometimes people don't want to discuss. There's an old boys club network in the audio industry, and it's been there for a really long time. And I don't know how much time I have, but if we go back to the beginning of the high-end industry and what Harry Pearson and Gordon Holt tried to do, that has been dramatically changed. And
let's not go back to the Big Bang. Let's focus on the question, then we can move on.
Well, it is the Big Bang, but the fact is we're questioning a lot of what has happened over the last 30 or 40 years and how the industry works and how people get information. And is this information accurate? Is it representative of what things are? And I'm happy to be a disruptor. I'm glad we're a disruptor, because I think an industry without criticism can't grow and change. And I think that's part of our purpose.
Very good. Jay.
Well, originally, the intent here, Elliot, if you remember, when you and I started talking about the creation of this podcast or show, however you want to call it, the intent was for us to bring more information, things that are oftentimes unsaid, expose whatever is going on, and be a lot more raw. You remember those conversations, right?
Yes, of course.
That was the initial intent of this. Now, when we started doing that as of the last 2 or 3 weeks, whether it be through here or even my channel, there was some pushback. Okay, everyone should know that there was some pushback from different businesses within the industry. Okay, and so I don't want to say we're muzzled. I don't want to say that we are right now in a position where we can't be 100% open about our sentiments, whether it be about a show, about a certain product, or the way business is conducted. But I can say that there is, I want to say, an invisible wall right now, perhaps not allowing us to be as open as we would love to be. I want to throw it out there. Okay, because if we're going to be honest with our audience right now, let's be honest with them. We're not going to open up every single thing that we know. Okay, and I think they deserve that from us, the truth. Okay, whether that will continue and remain as what it is right now, who knows? But I think eventually, if we have more support and more people follow us, subscribing, liking this podcast, liking this channel, then of course our voices are going to be heard even louder. With only 950 subscribers, it is shocking to me how many people are watching. Okay, forget about the subscribers. I guarantee you what you see in terms of subscribers is not a direct representation of how many clicks we get. I can assure you of that. We got a lot more people watching than our total number of subscribers. Okay, and so a lot of different businesses are following us. I repeat, a lot of people are watching us. And many of you have come to me through text messages, through emails, phone calls, and you guys have voiced it to me that you actually look forward to this time slot every week. You enjoy listening to this when you're driving to work the next morning or you're doing things around the house. Okay, and we want to keep bringing you fresh stuff. But to Danny's earlier point, it is true. Sometimes we can be redundant. It feels as if we're running out of matter, of subject matter, of, some sort of added talking points. Okay. And we have to reconvene. We have to regroup as a team here to figure out what else do you guys want to see. So in short, what I'm trying to say is we need your help perhaps bringing ideas, things, topics, conversations that maybe we should touch on that we haven't had a chance to even think about. Okay. You guys are as important to this podcast as us showing up and being accountable every single week.
Absolutely. Okay.
Amen.
Without an audience, there is no reason to do a podcast.
Very well said, Jay. Thanks. Thanks for everybody for your comments.
Ron?
Picking up Jay's point, he's right. We cannot be as transparent as I personally would like us to be able to be. However, I do truly believe we on the show are more transparent than anybody else in the industry. So while we can't be as perfectly transparent as we want, I think we're doing a damn good job of being more transparent than anybody else. And two of the things I like the most about the show are these inside baseball type industry topics. I love the fact that we talk about that. Yes, we can't go 100%, but we're going like 85, 90, 92.5%. So not quite as transparent as I'd love to be able to go, as Jay says, but I think we're more transparent than just about anything else on the internet with this stuff. Secondly, I personally love, one of my favorite subjects is prodding industry professionals to be more transparent themselves. And this show seems, as Jay said, a little bit like Richard Nixon's second election. Nobody admits to voting for the guy, but the guy won the election. A lot of people in the industry watch this show, whether they admit it or not.
Yep.
I want to thank the guy for the Thomas Dolby comment. She blinded me with science. It's good to see some people listen to old music. I like that.
Heck yeah. That's my buddy Steve Westman. You should check out his channel. We should have him on the show, actually. We really should.
I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with him, but I'm certainly willing to try.
Yep.
Question number 2. How does the Florida International Audio Expo show compare to other shows in the U.S.? Elliot, you're the only one of the 4 of us that went to the show, so you take that first question.
Well, I think that the Florida Audio Expo is a regional show. It's certainly not as large as Expona. I don't think it's as large as CapFest.
It's not.
As a show, I think that they have their good points and their bad points. The good points is the people are generally nice there. It's not overtly crowded. For me, it's a piece of cake because I can drive there in 3.5 hours. I went up this time and visited a client, did an install before I went. I'm not a fan of the hotel. Sorry, Mike. I'm really not a fan of the hotel. I think,
Mike knows this.
If we're going to be in the high end, I think part of the high end is the venue that you show has to be kind of high end as well. And that hotel, the air conditioning's not great. The parking's not great. They don't have high end food. I can tell you that. I'm not sure they have low end food, but I'm not even sure they have food. But the fact is that
Mars bars.
I having done the show and my ex-partner's business did the show. I have respect for anybody that does a show. I know how much work is involved and how much planning and how much it costs. And I'll give you an example. In Mike Bavard's room, people bring in plants. He didn't bring in plants. He brought in 12-foot fucking trees, and he had about 24 of them in the room. When I walked in there, it was like something out of Jurassic Park. These giant ferns, 12 feet tall, and they really did a good job. But unfortunately, you walk into one room and it has a smell, and you walk into another room, it's kind of cold, and another one is hot. And I really feel, unfortunately for them, that distracts from the show. But it looked like, like most of the regional shows, like CapFest also, people have a good time. They enjoy themselves. It's not overtly crowded. So if you're actually going there to listen and look, that you have an opportunity to do that. And for that, I think it does a really good job. You know, whether it's for me, that's a whole different story. I think I've been to too many shows too many times, and I don't find that I'm really that interested in it. But I did have a good time at the show for the few hours that I was there.
Jay, how do you find the Florida show?
So, full disclosure, Mike is a friend of mine. And as a friend of his, I'm very open and honest with him and blunt. My wife was working for Front Row Theater, helping them with the rooms and all of that. Okay. So her feedback was, you know, they had issues with the air conditioning. Okay. People know that the air conditioning was also an issue the first year within this venue. Okay. And I gave that feedback to Mike. Mike is my friend, so I can be open about this. Okay. Then there is, you know, obviously the issue with the food not being great, to the issue with the location of the venue, where you really have to drive, you know, somewhat far to find a good restaurant. So there are many situations that to me negate the show from actually going next level. I think the venue right now is become the biggest obstacle for the show to continue to grow successfully. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know what it takes to run a successful show. I know Bart works extremely hard to put this together every year. This is his passion. This is his baby. I respect his work. But respectfully, I can also say that the show needs to get the hell on out of there. It needs to go somewhere else. Okay, and I told this to Mike. Mike watches the show religiously, by the way, and I'm sure this feedback is going to get back to him and his team, okay? Everyone is basically feeling the same way. And also, you know, I also think that we sometimes don't understand something that Mike brought to my attention, which is, do you realize, Jay, how hard it is to have a hotel, a nice venue, actually be cool with us pulling beds out of rooms so we can display sound systems? Do you think that's an easy conversation to have with these top-notch hotels / venues? They don't want any of that shit to happen. This is one of the reasons, and Gary will be here to actually basically tell you the same thing that I'm telling you right now. One of the reasons why the show moved from where it was before here in Texas, and now it's in Dallas, somewhere else in Dallas, is because of that same issue. They had a problem with beds being pulled out of rooms. It was a shit show, a shit storm. It created issues. And so it is difficult to find a great venue. It's not that simple, folks. In addition to that, that means higher ticket sales, higher price points for exhibitors. It comes with it. And so if Mike moves the production to Orlando, which I told him he should take the show to Orlando, I told him that. He said it's going to come at a higher price point. Then so be it. Exhibitors are not going to complain if you put them in a better venue. Clearly, Orlando's a better city. There's a lot of shit to do for families to go to Disney and such. So hold on, let me finish here. So Mike is aware of all of this. I think that right now his show is it's clearly not at the same level of Capital Audio. It's clearly not at Expona's level. And in my opinion, I don't know how it lines up or how it is next to this Dallas show that is only going to be, I believe, 2 years. This is the second year at the show, I believe. So it may be behind the Dallas show for all we know. And that show just got started. Mike has been doing this for 9 years. And by the way, he did not leave the original venue because he wanted to. He actually was essentially forced out of that venue by being charged twice the amount of money that he was originally paying, and because the military rented that venue for the first 3 months of the year. So no venue is going to give you a weekend when they can sign somebody for 12 fucking weeks, right? It's not going to happen. And so he has a choice to make: move the show back to that venue, but make the show happen on a different month, not certainly not February or March. Figure it out. Is it September when it should happen? That's what he's going to be talking to his partners this coming Friday. Go ahead, Elliot.
Okay. I mean, part of the problem is finding a hotel that has enough non-sleeping rooms to get a lot of the audio stuff in. Like, the best show I've ever been to from a hotel was the last Rocky Mountain at the Gaylord. Now, the Gaylord is a resort. It has 6, 7, 8, 9 restaurants at the hotel. It's got swimming pool. It's got all kinds of stuff to do there. Plus it had, I don't know how many, but a lot of display rooms. I mean, Expona has some. This hotel has very few. what I mean by that is you go on the first floor and you have the breakout rooms, and they only have a few of them. I don't know how many, but let's say 10. And Jay is right. When you're asking a hotel to remove all the furniture from a guest room, they don't want to do it. In this particular hotel, an awful lot of the guest rooms are kind of tiny to begin with. They're like 12 by 14, which really doesn't lend itself to putting audio equipment in and having people come in the room. There's no room for people to come in the room. So I don't know. You need more of a convention center, something that's set up for it. And to be honest, there really aren't a lot except in major cities. And the ones that are in major cities are really expensive. That's why Expo is 2 or 3 times or 4 times the price of everything else.
Danny, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think what resonates with me is, obviously some of the comments Elliot and Jay have made, which with regards to the availability of rooms at the show, the ambience, the experience that you get. I always jokingly say, it's just another high-end audio show, regional show, that is. Kind of reminds me of the Jersey show, or the New York show, whatever it was called. I forgot. Back in, what was it, October, September last year. And again, I keep going back to the same thing, which is, to me, these shows, they've kind of lost meaning. I've said this many times. I've said this often. I wonder what the ROI is for a show like this, or any show really. You're selling, in the case of Jay, in the case of Elliot, certainly, you're selling systems costing, at least upper tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you can't get service for a burger. I mean, it just doesn't add up to me. I think the people that are in the market for gear like that could give 2 wits about a show like this. And so again, it goes back to my central question around all these shows, whether it's Expona or soon to be the Vienna show or whatever. I feel that these shows have all lost their meaning. We're
going to discuss that a lot more in the next episode with Gary. I just wanted to focus on the Florida show compared to other shows. Question number 3: is it true that Stereophile and the Absolute
Thanks for cutting me off like that, Ron. I appreciate that.
Pardon me? What was that?
I said thanks for cutting me off like that.
You got to give them the message.
Well, no, I'm serious. We got to preserve some of the show.
What's his name? The James Bond Dushko.
I wanted to compare just Florida to the other shows without getting into the sort of the philosophy of the show thing. Okay. Next question. This is important. Why did the Absolute Sound and Stereophile apparently boycott the Florida show? Jay?
Okay. Yeah, I'm clearly directly. Thanks, Ron. I just mentioned that we have to be muzzled, right? We have to kind of not open up the gates to to the reality of what's going on. Well, I'm sure a lot of people that watch this show also follow me, and we had a couple of very controversial videos between myself, Mike Bavard, Elliot, Lee Scoggins, and Florian, right, over the last month or so. So that created an entire, snowball effect. It was a shitstorm. And some say, again, I am speaking without any evidence of this, so I want to make sure I say that. I don't have any proof of what I'm about to say. Some say that it is a form of retaliation for those 2 episodes that we aired on my channel, to kind of show that they were not cool with it, the magazines, that is. They were not really going to be putting up with that type of narrative when it comes to their business practices, when it comes to what reviewers are doing or the equipment that they're, quote unquote, being, that's being offered to them. And so this was a way to kind of make a statement that, hey, man, if you want us here, you got to cut that shit, basically. You can't continue to do what you're doing, going on podcasts, telling everyone what you think is the truth or what's happening, which is obviously something that a lot of them denied. But I will be very blunt here. I did have a conversation with Stereophile for the first time. I actually emailed him. And it was coming from a good place. I was being the grown up. I was being the bigger person. And I simply asked, hey, you guys have a problem with me? Is there any beef between you and I, or, what's the problem, right? And I'm being told that I'm the disruptor of the industry somehow. And so I just want to clear the air as far as why do you feel that way about me, right? So we had a conversation. I'm not going to give the person's name. I think it's irrelevant. What you guys need to understand is that I reached out. I told them, who I am, what is it that my business consists of. And obviously I found a niche within the industry, and they actually acknowledged me. They said, yes, you have. There's no denying. You came out of nowhere. You're here now. And so long story short, my entire intention was to let them know that, hey, man, if there's anything you guys want to say or clear the air on something, I offer you guys my mic. Come on my channel. I have no problem with that, and speak whatever you want to speak on. Talk about whatever it is that might be bothering you. If there's anything at all that I can help you with, I'd be more than happy to help you with that. So I left it at that, and that's where the conversation ended. And so at the end of the day, to answer the question, I think it's just the form of them making a statement, obviously about they were clearly hurt. Their feelings were hurt with those 2 episodes. And I hate to say this, but I don't know if we're ever going to continue to make videos like that about other areas of the industry. So take that for what it's worth.
Elliot.
I think it's sad that, and I've kind of said this before, that to be a reviewer means you're a critic. And there's a difference between a reviewer and a reporter. And if you're a reviewer, then you're a critic. And a critic that can give criticism and can't take criticism is kind of a very difficult thing for me to wrap my head around. I think if we're going to improve as an industry on every level, okay, I don't care if it's reviewer, manufacturer, distributor, dealer, we have to be able to look at ourselves and say, this is really not that great, and maybe we could do better at it. And so I want to be careful how I say this, which is not normally my nature, that because Mike or I or Jay said something on a video, to take it out on a significant rest of the industry, you got to realize all those people that went to that show expected to get press coverage from the magazines. And if the magazines punished the show by not coming because of something said, they also punished all the people that were at the show. And I kind of find that really infantile and petty. And if you got a problem, like Jay said, hey, you want to come on the show? You got an open invitation. Any one of you, Robert Harley, Jonathan Vallon, okay, David Robinson, Tom Martin, pick up the phone, come on and talk. Okay. Yep. We're not hiding anything. We're not running away from things, but I'm also not going to hurt people that are innocent. Okay. Just because I want to get even at you. I just find that really unprofessional. Let's use that.
Let me get a quick question for Jay or for any of you. Do we need to make a distinction between stereophile and absolute sound? Somebody representing Sumco said absolute sound didn't boycott. They just haven't been there naturally in a couple of years. So is it, I just want to be factually precise, is it really only stereophile that made an affirmative decision not to come to this particular show?
Well, Mike would know better than whatever. I just know that I saw a few reviewers at the show, and I believe they were there because they were participating in events. I didn't see, again, I don't know the details. I didn't see any of the people from Absolute Sound, and I didn't see any people from Stereophile.
There should be a distinction.
I saw Michael Fremer, and of course I saw all the YouTube guys, but I didn't see any of the reviewers that I know from either of the magazine at the show.
There should be a distinction, 100%, Ron. You can't bundle them up like that. You can't. If Toyota fucks up, you can't blame Ford and Chevy for the same thing. It doesn't work that way, right? It's whoever the hell is professional, whoever the hell is, throwing tantrums and really doing what they're not supposed to be doing, right? You can't be blasting the Absolute Sound or other publications if it's stereo or another magazine that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's impossible. Or vice versa. You can't.
Danny, what are your thoughts?
I don't really have any.
Okay. Now, Michael Fremer was there, but was he there on behalf of Tracking Angle and not Absolute Sound per se, or what is your understanding there?
Well, he did an event, so I assume that he was invited by the show. Again, Mike Bavard could probably answer that, or what's his name that runs the show. But they have events, like a schedule of events, and he did it. I guess you'd call it a seminar. So I assume he was representing himself or Tracking Angle. I really don't know.
I believe it was Tracking Angle. I saw his video today on YouTube.
Okay, question number 4. Now we're going to change the topics. Done with the show. Do dealers do a disservice to their customers by telling the customers they've got to upgrade to every new version, every new upgrade, every new update of components they have already?
I would say, go ahead, Danny. Yeah.
Look, it's on the one hand, they have a business to run. So, they're obviously interested and vested in moving boxes and selling stuff to people. On the other hand, as I've always contended, and I've always told people from my own personal experience, just because something new is new, it doesn't mean that the old stuff suddenly sucks, right?
Yeah.
Even though as many of you know that have followed me over the years, my absolute reference phono of commercially available product is the DS audio system with the EMMLabs EQ1 Energizer. But that doesn't mean that all of my other MC cartridges or cartridges, for the matter, suddenly sound like shit. And they don't. They sound as great as they ever did. So, again, I mean, it's part of the iPhone generation of, every year there's something new that we got to sell. And the reality of it is, the stuff that you have sounds great. I mean, if it sounds great, there's nothing wrong with it. So, first rule of high-end audio, you don't know what you don't know until you hear something otherwise. So,
That sounded like a yogiism.
It is. So I get it. Look, on the one hand, I get it. It's a business. You are in the market to sell something, and you are in the market to make money. Obviously, you got to pay the rent, got to pay your employees, you got to pay your people, etc. Marketing, this, that, and the other. On the other hand, Jay's a happy camper. There's lots of used stuff on the market for him to sell.
Yep. Hell yeah.
Elliot?
Well, I have a little different philosophy on this. Obviously, as a dealer, you're in business to sell equipment. I mean, that's not a secret, and nobody's going to pretend there isn't. I've just felt with my customers that it's my job to let them know when there's new stuff, but I don't want them to buy new stuff unless it's improved and better than the stuff they have. And as a dealer, I don't carry a lot of products. So if one of my products comes out, if EMM comes out and they have a new preamp coming out, which I haven't gotten yet, and that new preamp is, in my opinion, significantly better, then it's my job to let them know that people have it, that I think this is better, and maybe you should come take a look at it. What I don't like is if you carry 50 lines, in my opinion, you're not committed to anything. And so if you're moving people from manufacturer to manufacturer to manufacturer to this over and over again, then I don't really think you're doing people a service. I still believe, and I've said this, ad nauseum, we don't listen to components, we listen to systems. And so when you put together a quality system, whatever the brand is, okay, whether it's my product or or Danny's product or Mike Bavard's product or any other dealer's product. If you really put together a system that's well put together, the room is taken care of, the equipment is positioned properly and calibrated properly, that's the first and foremost thing. It's a new widget or a new gadget. It's fun, and people like to buy stuff. And of course they do. They really like to buy stuff. I think audiophiles are fascinated by the gear. But to just claim everything new is wonderful and you got to buy it and get hyperbolic about it and what you own is shit and this is great, that's just nonsense. It's just total nonsense.
Jay.
Well, I don't think dealers are doing a disservice because their job is to sell. That's what the business is about, is for them to actually sell and hopefully make good music, good sound, excuse me, not music, right? Hopefully have a good sounding system, help the customer, guide them in the right direction. But I do think that a lot of it has to do with consumers wanting something new. And if they're knocking on my door because they want to try something else, if I'm in business to sell you something, am I really doing a disservice when you're coming to knock on my door and basically want me to show you the latest and greatest? Right? So it's really not only the dealer, it's also customer wishes and wants. I've said it a million times. If people want to never buy anything again, never watch YouTube videos that have to do with HiFi, never open up a magazine, never visit a forum. And I guarantee you, your itch to buy new shit will stop. As simple as that. And that doesn't help me by saying that because I sell used HiFi. It doesn't help me, to be that honest. But that's the easiest way to stop the bullshit and not have to buy anything else. But we know that's impossible. We all have a disease. We're going to open up a forum. We're going to see an ad in a magazine or the internet, and we're going to want to go to the dealer. And so the dealer's there just waiting like an anaconda in the fucking Everglades, and for you to pull up, and it's going to swallow you whole. But it's your ass that's walking to the dealer. It's you. The dealer's not forcing you to come in. So no, I don't think the dealers are doing a disservice.
We enjoy spending money in this hobby, and we enjoy spending money so much we enjoy spending our friends' money when new things come up. But this is what I advise people. Just because there's a new upgrade, just because there's a new version of a product you own, does not mean that your ears are going to prefer the new version. I advise people all the time, don't just buy the upgrade willy-nilly. Try to get a demo of the new and allegedly new and improved version in your system, in your home. Compare the new version of the incumbent and then make a decision. And only if your ears hear an improvement with the new version should you pay up for the new version. My point is, don't just assume that the new upgrade, the new version, the new improvement is going to be an improvement to your idiosyncratic ears. I'll give you an example. I really enjoyed, thanks to Bob Neal, demoing a Arri Surratt Incedo S line stage preamp. I decided I was going to get it. And when I let people know that, they said, oh, but Ron, the Incedo S is kind of in the low end of the model range. Why don't you get the next model up, the Impera? And I said, because I didn't demo the Impera. I can't just assume that because the Impera is the model up and the Impera is more expensive, that the Impera is going to be preferable to my ears after I just spent 3 months deciding that I like this particular model. And so I really do believe I kind of follow this philosophy myself. I don't personally assume that the higher model is necessarily going to be preferable to me in my system unless I prove it to myself in an audition.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's why Ron Resnick was not a good audio dealer.
Correct.
Well, but I mean, I think you also speak to the point of, longevity and, building a brand and, creating a community around that brand, none of which you really can do if every year, every other year, you have something new to throw at the market, right? If you look at, again, shameless self-promotion, but if you look at EMMLabs, they generally tend to keep products or products within a line for several years, right? I mean, Elliot mentioned it. The new Pre-I came out in February, or really January, but let's call it February. And the previously had been available since 2017. So, again, I mean, that's almost, looking at nearly 10 years of a run life cycle, for a product that is really central to your system. And only when, the team really felt that, hey, we have significant advances in the power supply, in the circuit, et cetera, where we feel that this new preamp is going to warrant coming out with a new preamp, is when a new preamp came out. Which, there's lots to be said about that, right? I mean, again, you're not going to find them for pennies on the dollar on Audiogon. There's also an upgrade program that EMMLabs offers. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Just to expand this a little bit, for those people that want to listen, companies that come out with a new product every 3 months, okay, I won't name any names, but there are some of them that in a 5-year period produce 100 new products. Okay, what are they really saying to you as a customer? Okay, EMM is a good example. Audio Research is another good example off the top of my head that I can think about in electronics. That there are some that I sell, but I don't want to promote them because people get angry.
Can I also add 2 more that also have the philosophy you're talking about? VTL, Vacuum Tube Logic, and Aesthetics come out with models very rarely and only with great introspection. So there are
a lot of good companies that way. I'm not trying to do this, but the fact is that if you really build a good product, okay, there's something that's called useful market life. And if you're going to go actually do the research and the design and build a good product, it shouldn't be obsolete in a year or 2. Now, there are some technologies like digital that if a new format came out, then you'd have to adapt to that. Like all of a sudden streaming came out, so people had to adapt. But when you're making a preamp, there's no new technology. There may be parts difference. You could do an update. Speakers, I mean, you don't need a new speaker every year. I'm sorry, that's BS. Okay, that's part of I made a scientific breakthrough, which therefore means it sounds better because I have a plutonium tweeter and a polonium crossover and an unobtainium footer and all this other bullshit made out of tuna fish cans. The reality is that when you see a company every show have a new product, in my opinion, that's a company that you really should double pump the brakes and do a great job of thinking why they need a new speaker every 3 months. Okay. How many high-end speakers can you make? Is the $300,000 speaker replaced by the 550, and then by the 800, then by the 1.2 million? Okay. What are they saying to you when they're doing that?
What they're saying is that they didn't build the right product to begin with.
What they're saying is they want more of your money. Okay.
Yes, but they also had the ultimate design all along. They just give you bits and pieces of it, so you can do
550,000 wasn't the ultimate design, and 300 wasn't the ultimate design.
No, well, we're talking. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're getting. I was thinking about more along the lines of preamplifiers and things like that.
Question 5: is streaming audiophile quality music playback?
What's the definition? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I cut you off last time, Jay. Sorry.
I just wanted to know, do we have a formal definition of what audiophile quality, music is supposed to sound like?
In your opinion.
Okay. In my opinion, if the definition is high resolution, 48, red book, I guess so. It is. But then obviously those that have a turntable would battle that and say, no, it's a turntable. Those that play CDs will say it's CDs or tapes. I don't think there's a clear definition as to what basically defines audiophile recording, other than the ones that we normally know. But really, those come in all sorts of formats. So I would say that streaming is gotten so close, and in some cases, damn near indistinguishable to actual formats, all like records and CDs, that I would say yes. I would say definitely.
Danny.
So I know that from speaking to people, I know that each streaming service has a watermark feature to protect and prevent pirated copying of the stream. And that in of itself, this watermark that they imprint onto the signal has an effect on the sound quality in some way, shape, or form. My point with streaming has always been that I love it for music discovery. Absolutely love it for music discovery, without a question. I don't like it at all from the perspective of supporting an artist or artists or a band. They get paid nothing. I think streaming ruins the entire flow of content creation and music creation to the point where only the top artists are the ones that are making any money off of streaming, and basically leaving everyone else out to die. Now, granted, I suppose you could say that, by having access to so much music, it has really ruined the music feel altogether. And, music sounds more similar and has sounded more similar over the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years than it ever has before. And certainly I don't really pay attention to any of the modern pop music, I guess, if you want to call it that, popular music. And so, to me, buying a CD, even though it's just a CD, playing it through a transport or a CD player, to me, it still sounds better than streaming it. And I always like to mention that the CAF show, the Fabulous CAF show with Elliot. I pulled out some early digital CDs that were not remastered. They were not high res. They were not DSD. They were not MQA. They were none of that. And they just happened to be great sounding CDs, and people were floored. And again, which goes back to our earlier conversation of, just because something is high res or what, 24, 192 or whatever it may be, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be better than what you already had. So anyway.
Well, to answer the question, 100% yes. I think that the streaming is a high fidelity format, and people can argue about which one they like better. I don't really care. You want to play records, play records. You want to play CDs, play CDs. If you want to play 8 tracks, play 8 tracks. You want to play a tape recorder, play it. But I think that streaming is not all the same, just like all turntables are not the same and all CDs are not the same. There are different levels of streaming. I personally believe, and I've said this before, that streaming is the greatest thing that ever happened to audio. And it's the greatest thing because there are a lot of people like me that want to park their ass in a chair and hold their phone as a remote and a volume control and turn the lights off and go anywhere they want in the world at the click of a finger. It's the ultimate jukebox. On top of that, the algorithm starts to learn what you like, and it finds loads of music that you either have forgotten about, never heard of, or never been exposed to. My playlist is logarithmically bigger from people that I found out. Like, I'll just give you stupid examples. Like, you go back and you listen to Cream, and you got Ginger Baker, okay? I really didn't know 5 years ago that Ginger Baker really didn't like playing rock and roll, and he was a jazz drummer. And then you find all the stuff he did there. The same thing with Steve Gadd or Manu Katché or, other people. And so I've spent a lot of time, and I kind of got into an argument today about noise. Streaming and digital present completely different problems than, let's say, analog. And so learning how to address different kinds of noise, whether it's from the Ethernet, whether it's from the DAC, whether it's from a transport, whether it's from a streamer, whether it's from a cabinet, the room, the cables, all of that stuff is out there. Streaming is here. It's not going away. It is the greatest way to find music. It is the greatest way to you want to talk about value? $14 or whatever it is, $15 a month for an unlimited supply of music is a complete and utter bargain. And if you want to buy stuff, I don't have a problem if Danny wants to support the artist and he wants to buy the record and he wants to buy the CD. But in order to know you buy it, where would you hear it first? And one last thing. I'm not a Karen, okay? It's not my problem what people in the music business get paid or don't get paid. That's up to them and their lawyers. I'm concerned in what I get fucking paid, okay? And what I do. I can't worry about the whole world. I'm not a liberal woman from Wisconsin worrying about all the rest of the stuff. We have to deal in reality. Reality, this is the best thing that ever happened to music. And every young person that's out there has been streaming long before we have. So if we want to bring them into our business, that is the way we're going to have to bring them in.
Well, maybe we can reconcile. It's not the greatest thing that ever happened to music. Maybe it's the greatest thing that ever happened to consumers for music.
Okay.
Consistent with Danny's that it may not be the greatest thing that ever happened to artists. I'm probably the least digital focused of the four of us. And my answer is absolutely streaming is audiophile quality. I think that ship has sailed. I mean, I don't even think there's a question about that anymore, even according to, me, who's relatively more analog oriented. Next question. Out of you guys, do you prefer Tidal, Qobuz, or some alternative streaming service?
I'm a Qobuz.
Okay. I think
I listened to both of them. I got rid of Tidal and I kept Qobuz. I think it sounds better. I could go into why if you really want to, but they're both good. I had both for a long time because Qobuz did not have as much material as Tidal, but I think they do now, and I do think it sounds more what I want it to sound like than Tidal does. But I don't think it's a mistake to own one or the other. I think they just made, maybe Danny can correct me, that Spotify and Apple are now available in non-compressed formats as well. Oh, I'll say one more thing. Don't get hung up on high res. If you really want to get an education and you stream, particularly if you have Roon for some reason, Roon will give you a list of all the different versions of the piece of music that's available. For example, if you picked up Steely Dan Asia, you could find it at the standard Red Book, and you might be able to find it at 24.96 or 21.92 or DSD or whatever else they got out there. But having said that, taking things and remastering them in high res, in my opinion, and this is a general statement, don't sound as good as the original. Most of the best digital music that I have, especially older stuff, is Red Book. And then some of the newer stuff, for example, and some of the newer jazz or popular music is mastered in high res, and you don't have any other choice. So just there's no generalization, but I think the reason we didn't like early CDs, in the most part, was not the CDs, it was the hardware.
Danny.
I've, for whatever reason, I've been with Tidal for, ever since Tidal came out. I don't even remember how long that's been now. 15 years, something like that. Never really felt the need to switch. And again, most of the streaming that I do is for discovery, music discovery, and I'll either buy the CD or I'll buy the record. And in the case where I stream it, it's Tidal.
I use Qobuz only because that's what people recommended to me originally, and I don't use Roon because I don't need the added complexity personally, but I'm perfectly happy using Qobuz. Any other thoughts, gentlemen? Any questions from the audience we can take?
Yeah.
Do you see anything?
Well, I didn't look.
I'm looking right now.
Haven't really seen anything
Yeah, I didn't really either.
crazy.
Okay, any final
Very few,
thoughts?
very few
I
people
can,
alive have spent as much in music media
I
as me.
can,
Is that something we want to applaud?
I can add some context to I'll say it, the Cobus title. I don't think to Elliot's point, whichever you like, stick with it. I mean, you're not going to lose sleep over having one and not the other. But I will say that most systems, for the most part, I think a lot of systems out there have a hard time sorting out the differences, the sonic differences between both. I think that there are some systems that you're able to hear when your digital is solid. You got from the router to, all the way to the switches to the freaking music server. You got your shit is together for digital. That's where you can really tell the difference, the sonic differences, the nuances, because they become nuances, by the way, at this point when you compare both of them. It's not like every single song, one will be better than the other. Oftentimes, it's the same album and the same resolution. Okay. So, but what I'll say is Cobus does have a bigger selection of music, to 100 million songs versus 10 million on Tidal. However, Tidal has a lot more mainstream stuff. There are things that are, for example, like music that you heard when you were a little kid that could be weird to some people. You might find that on Tidal, on Spotify, but never to be heard from on Cobus. So I will say that Cobus has more of an audiophile catalog of music than Tidal. That's not to say that Tidal doesn't have that. It does, but I think Cobus has just other cuts, other albums that are not found on Tidal.
Elliot, John Frager would like to hear why you prefer Cobus sonically.
Okay, I think that in my comparisons that I did it, I found that I felt that Tidal was a little bit more forward sounding, maybe even tipped up in the upper mid range in the high frequency. I found it a little harsher or brighter sounding than Cobus, and I found Cobus more natural. Now I want to tell you this, that I had both. This is in a very serious digital system and a very serious system. But there are songs that aren't on Cobus or things that whatever, and I use on Tidal. I'm not saying this is a night and day differential. This is a matter of preference, and I think that overall, to me, Cobus sounds more like what I think music is supposed to sound like, and that's why I like it.
Any music segment tonight, Danny?
No music segment tonight. However, I would like to invite you all to check out a new project I started, a weekly live stream where I play DJ. If you haven't already done so, check out my channel, Sonic Flare. I figured I'd get good at it before I started on the EMM YouTube channel. But this week's going to be the third show. It's about a 2-hour show. I play all kinds of really cool music. And the benefit is you actually get to hear a straight line out signal from the EMM pre-I with either the EQ, the DSEQ1 optical energizer, or the Mola Mola MC Lupe phono preamp. And a couple of friends that are listening to it, they have their computer hooked up to their hi-fi, and I've done it actually myself, and it sounds really damn good. You really get to hear a lot more than you think you would, and yeah, it's pretty cool. And bonus, you get to experience some new music that you probably have not heard before.
Best of luck with the new project.
Well, thank you.
Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
So, Danny, there's no video on this feed. It's just you have to look at you.
No, there's video. Yeah, no, it's I use 3 cameras, and so I basically one camera is pointed at the 2 turntables I use. One camera is pointed at the album artwork of the current playing song, and then the third one is kind of panning into the room.
I want to do a shout out to the guy from Audio Den. That's a long time ago, the last time I was in New York. I mean, this is like a really long time ago. This is the 1970s. He must have bought there. I'm flattered that you remember. I haven't been there in a really, really, really long time. But that was my first audio business in 1970, maybe 1976, 75, when I opened that store. And that's when audio was really a lot of fun. I have to admit, it was really a lot of fun. There was 10% of the product and lots of people that were interested and loved music. Music was so much an important part of a young man's life back then, a young woman probably too. I mean, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have cable. We had 13 channels of shit in New York, okay? And I do mean 13 channels of shit. You had a few network shows. You had great FM radio in New York, WNBC and WNEW and Scott Muni and all of those guys. And so you remember receivers, folks? You know, integrated amplifiers with a tuner in them that people used to actually listen to. By the way, there was no CDs then either. You had to buy a record or you listened to the radio.
Yep.
You froze, Elliot. Okay. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
That's it. Thank you for the support. Subscribe to the channel.
Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Thank you very much for joining. We will see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.
20 episodes. Subscribe.
Later.